So, Defenders Season 1 review, our series review, since it's a limited series, a one time deal, especially since it didn't perform so well to the expectations of people. So, right off the bat, we got Daredevil. We knew we were also going to get Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist, and that would lead to this Defenders team up. Uh, a reflection of how the Avengers originally worked with Thor, Iron Man, Captain America, and Hulk. So, Daredevil season 1, it performed well enough that it got a season 2, and that also introduced Punisher, which the actor John Berthold performed so well in that it led to him getting his own standalone series that wasn't part of the original contractual deal. After Daredevil season 2, and Daredevil season 2 was a bit uneven in terms of, performance. That would be a trend that would kind of carry over. But after that, we got Jessica Jones, which for the most part blew people away, and it also introduced Luke Cage. Then we got Luke Cage, and Luke Cage performed very well for the first half. Most people did not agree so well with the second half of the season because the villain that came in the back half wasn't as good as the villain in the first half, and so there are some mixed reviews on Luke Cage, but for the most part, it was received positively. Following that, we got into the Iron Fist TV show. This was actually the one I probably looked forward to the most after Daredevil because Iron Fist is a pretty cool comic book character. But this season did not do well. It got mostly negative reviews, and for good reason. Iron Fist wasn't really fleshed out very well, wasn't really written well. The fight choreography for a character like Iron Fist, which is supposed to be like the best, he should surpass Daredevil in terms of fight scenes. That did not go over well. Characters like actions, motivations, almost everything you could think of was a problem with that show. So, and because of the way season 1 of Iron Fist ended, without Danny Rand getting his costume or really properly getting control of his Iron Fist, and it's pretty much like a whole season of just seeing somebody flounder about, never getting from point A to point B, and I really thought he was going to get his costume in the end and have control of his Iron Fist and his fighting style and everything. But knowing that, none of that happened, and I knew that all that was going to carry over into the Defenders, which set my expectations pretty low, but I still had pretty high expectations because I thought for sure, okay, Danny Rand, he has to get his control of his Iron Fist completely. He has to get his costume too. He has to. So that's going to happen in here. Well, that stuff doesn't happen in here. So that was a bit disappointing. So Defenders itself as a whole, it's kind of hard to do because you got all these little subplots from all these other shows, very important issues bleeding over a little bit in here where they have to address them, and that kind of takes away from the focus of where the plot's going. And you got all their little side characters, each getting a certain amount of time in here, and each of these characters have their own issues and problems that you kind of also have to address here. And the fact that most of these characters haven't even met each other leads to an entire, like, for almost 3 whole episodes, these characters don't come together. They Episode 1 is largely spent on them, where we left off on them, uh, and them reestablishing where we're at with them and where they're going, what their motivations are, all these little plots, all these characters in separate areas. And episode 2, they kind of start to meet each other individually, and then episode 3, they finally all come together near the end of the episode. So, and it's only 8 episodes, so that, I mean, sure, they need to establish things, they need to have all these characters not just unnaturally come together, just like jump together. Hey, we're a team. But it could have been handled a lot faster, especially since Dawson is in here and she's already met every single one of the characters. So it's very slow in the beginning, and you only have 8 episodes, so that was a negative thing to start with. For almost 3 whole episodes, it doesn't really pick up. Things don't really get moving. We introduced Sigourney Weaver uh, as the villain, not the actress, of course, but the actress playing a character that I can't even remember the name of. She's the primary antagonist for this show, and she's very threatening, imposing, intimidating, but also vulnerable. So there was a lot there to work with. That was really good. The only problem is that she doesn't hold up to villains like Kingpin or Punisher being a villain. Elektra is also a primary antagonist in here. The Hands resurrected her. They're using her as this thing they refer to as the Black Sky, and she gets some really great hardcore action scenes in here. She is very much a threat to the Defenders as a whole, the entire team. Uh, there's some tension between her and Jessica Jones because uh, they they just go back and forth like with the Jessica Jones just hates her. But we also get Stick in here, who's sort of kind of the leader of the Defenders in a way. Well, Daredevil is much more like the Batman of the Defenders because his just the quality, everything about Daredevil in here is great. It's really great, but he's at a place where he's not really trying to be Daredevil right now because the things that unfolded in season 2 and how it's affected his personal life. So he's at a place where he's really resistant to team up. He doesn't want to be Daredevil. He doesn't want to deal with these other people, and that's another thing. Most of these heroes, they're loner types. They do things on their own. They don't want to get anybody else involved. The only one who's really on board with getting people involved, and that's only after Colleen Wing kind of has a talk to him about how they may have allies. So Iron Fist is the one most on board with teaming up with the rest of these guys immediately when it's brought up that hey, we could be a team or whatever, we could all team up, we all have the same enemy. He is completely on board with it. The rest are pretty resistant to the idea. And Jessica Jones, Jessica Jones doesn't really have a lot of moments where she really shines in this one. Not that she has a lot of moments where it's really negative. She just doesn't really shine too much in here. Not, none of the heroes really shine in here, to be honest, except for Daredevil himself. Once he puts on the costume, and even before he puts on the costume, he shines a lot. And that's not me being biased. That's just these guys don't get that much great stuff to work with on here. Daredevil gets probably the best stuff to work with on here. And also, it may feel like he shines more because he actually has a full-fledged costume when the rest of them don't really have costumes. And that kind of bothered me that he's the only one with a costume because it's like Daredevil's teaming up with a bunch of normal civilians. And that's what it looks like. So that kind of bothered me a little bit. I mean, I don't want Jessica Jones to really have her ridiculous costume from the comic books that I I kind of, a part of me does, a part of me doesn't. But and Luke Cage never really had much of a costume in the comics anyway. But Iron Fist should really have his costume and stuff. So the hand's the primary villain, and you have the five fingers of the hand. You have them with uh brainwashed Elektra trying to kill everybody. The Chased gets slaughtered. That's the rival group of the hand. You know, Danny is really upset because he left his post to guard Conlon. Uh, and that ended up in a slaughter fest where he doesn't really have that place to go back to. And the hand is trying to get there. They need the Iron Fist to get there, and that's what they're after. There were all these little individual breadcrumbs given to like each of the separate characters that lead to the loaf of bread, of which leads to them all coming together. They're all following different trails about this big old plot, and that leads to them all coming together and realizing that all have the same enemy. There's a few things in here. I think Luke Cage and Iron Fist scenes between them are really good because maybe it's because I know the heroes for hire. They're a team in the comic books, and I like seeing scenes between them. They give the idea that that's a thing that could happen or is going to happen, but actually it never does happen. So that sucks. But this is the closest thing you really get to heroes for hire, that an episode in season 2 of Luke Cage. Anyways, Stick, he's in here, and Stick's an asshole as always, and very enjoyable. Elektra is a very intimidating villain in here, really enjoyable. Sigourney Weaver, why not much in the physical threat department, like she doesn't pose much of a physical threat to them, like because she doesn't come at them physically really herself too much. Well, and Madame Guile, she is really a threat in here. She finally like she does a lot. She does a lot, and she's really impressive. As far as the whole show goes, though, like episode 3, you get a big fight scene where all the characters team up and they're fighting them, and then Daredevil realizes like he's dealing with Elektra, and after that, there is another very slow episode for the entirety of episode 4. They're just sitting around in a restaurant, like talking about what they're gonna do, how they're gonna go about this. Like everybody's finding out who each other are, uh, what's going on, why this, why that, and it's just a whole episode of them just and it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would like more scenes where they're just like casually talking to each other, or casually hanging out or something. I would have liked some campy stuff, where everything's not about the plot. But this episode does really drag. And then we have 5, 6, 7, and 8. And those episodes, that's where things pick up. In episode 5, well, more so in episode 6 is really where things pick up. And that's a big problem because 8 episodes. 8 episodes. But there are some pretty strong and good interactions in here between. There's the first time Luke Cage and Iron Fist meet, they're fighting, and Iron Fist is getting his ass kicked, and then he finally punched Luke's face and lights him up with that power fist. That was pretty great. It's important to note that lighting behind the characters is often like color coded to who they are. For instance, Daredevil, like you'll have red stuff in the background. You'll have like with Jessica Jones, like purple stuff in the background, and then with like Iron Fist, you'll have like green stuff. Luke Cage, yellow stuff. But and that was cool. That was pretty cool right there. But for the most part, none of the episodes are really entertaining. Honestly, it's cool to see all these characters team up, but it's not very entertaining. It doesn't. There isn't really anything incredibly strong until like the final episode where they're all fighting all these bad guys, and Daredevil makes like the ultimate sacrifice, and we do lose a pretty prominent character. And it's still unclear if Elektra died or what. But she'll probably be back because she always is. That's how it works in the comic books with her. That Stick does die, which is that was a pretty big blow in terms to Daredevil and that show itself. Even though he's not a character that's around for like the entirety or whatever, that was pretty major character loss right there. We get all the little side characters, Karen, Foggy, Night Nurse, Misty Knight, and something pretty big happens for Misty Knight in here. Colleen Wing is also in here. She gets some pretty good relative stuff, but the Misty Knight suffers a great big loss. She gets her arm cut off. Which will lead to her getting her bionic arm like she has in the comics. She does that. Have it on season 2 of Luke Cage. She finally gets that metal arm. Uh, I gotta say, my favorite moments is like when Stick decapitates a dude and Jessica Jones' reaction to that is like, oh god, this crazy old blind man just cut somebody's head off. Uh, that's one of the standout moments. Elektra, you know, killing that. That was a really standout moment. Like I said, Iron Fist punching Luke Cage. That was a really standout moment, and the kind of tension between them when they finally meet each other in person through their girlfriends, and their girlfriends are like playing referee. Don't fight, guys. Like, uh, that's some really good stuff. Iron Fist wearing the clothes he wears in here after he ditches like the suit. He's got like the track suit and like he's got his chest exposed with the tattoo. When they're doing stuff like that, that's good, but he still doesn't get his costume for God's sakes. Still. Bet the events that happen here lead you to think he's gonna get his costume. It's like, why the hell are they taking so long with this character to do anything? Uh, and his behavior, it's still like Finn Jones doesn't do well with the serious stuff, like, and he's given a lot of serious stuff in here. Finn Jones would be much better doing like the lighthearted, not too heavy on the emotions stuff. Just and that would actually serve better for the comic book character of Iron Fist to just be depicted on here as like the lighthearted guy that's not really too dramatic, just fun, playful. That's how he should be on here, really, because the serious stuff it's just not that well. His fight scenes are better on here than they were in the Iron Fist show, so there is some improvement on here. But for the most part, it's only Daredevil that really shines with the fight scenes he's given. Luke Cage gets some pretty good fight scenes, and Jessica Jones, you know, she really doesn't have to do much. Like she can one hit most people and stuff like that. So she doesn't really shine when it comes to the fight scenes on here, but that's okay. She doesn't really need to. It's just it sucks that nobody else has a costume, just Daredevil. So it kind of looks weird though when he's running around with all these people who are just dressed in casual clothing. Uh, this show was ultimately a disappointment because there wasn't anything too great or too incredible. I would have much rather. Sure, they had to do this whole hand thing because the hand's been pretty big thing, but I would have much rather preferred these characters all coming together to try to take down somebody like Kingpin, who's organized crime and become the master of it. And I would have much preferred to see that type of thing, man. I think it's a real missed opportunity that this didn't really revolve around somebody like Kingpin, because the Hand, it's kind of much more of a faceless enemy. Sure, you have Madame Guile and these other characters cropping up. That ultimately, though, Daredevil makes the ultimate sacrifice, and that's kind of sad. But then you get that scene right before it's over that shows he will be back. Um, this did like give hope for Danny Rand to become a better character. But he's still running around all the time saying, "I am the Iron Fist. I am the immortal Iron Fist." Like, we don't know that by now, man. Like, everybody doesn't know that by now. Since you've told everybody about 20 times, I wish they'd stop writing that damn dialogue. And you can't blame the actor for that. He's not the one shoehorning it into the script, it's the damn writer. So they made him annoying to that degree. Uh, and because you really want to see Daredevil here, and he's trying to not be Daredevil, and Karen is really like Karen and Foggy don't. Karen more so doesn't want him to be Daredevil, and but you do want it as the audience. You do want him to be Daredevil because that's the most awesome thing in this Defenders universe. Him, Daredevil. So that kind of makes Karen a little bit annoying in here. Foggy does make some pretty great strides into like trying to understand Mac and trying to help him. He actually gives him the suit, which results in some mass guilt because he gave him the suit and he pretty much sent him off to his death trying to help him, and that it isn't how things worked out. But overall, I mean, there's not a lot of standout scenes. The music's okay. Uh, the acting, everybody does, act well together. They do have a certain amount of chemistry, but there should have been some campiness, like some playful dialogue and stuff to showcase that a bit more instead of just them kind of always butting heads. And but that is how they are. They're very much people that work alone. I would have just liked some campiness or whatever between the characters, or just to see them like casually hanging out on a corner, or just something. Pat, this didn't perform well, and it's just a one-time limited series. Never happen again. Unfortunate, because you could have really had a great second season where they go after the Kingpin, and maybe even and you could even involve Punisher to some degree. That would have been awesome. That would have been amazing. And the next time that they could team up, Iron Fist could have really had his costume and been much less of an emotional douchebag that childish and all about me, me, me. Because that's what it sounds like most of the time when he's talking. It's like me, me, me. And, he butts heads with the other ones because he always wants to be in the fight, always wants to be involved, always. I don't know, man. It's just, I give this a 6 out of 10 because there's nothing really too negative about it. It just feels like a casual team up, whereas it should be like this big, huge event. It just feels like a casual team up and like them dealing with you know, casual everyday hero stuff that they deal with as heroes, even though they're not necessarily all heroes. Anyway, 7 out of 10. Like, subscribe, comment, share your opinion. I'd actually like to hear a lot of opinions on this one to hear how people feel about it or what they would have preferred to happen on here, the direction it could have gone in. I'm really interested in hearing other people's opinions on this one, particularly above most other superhero content, because the negative reaction to it and the big expectations there were for it that were kind of offset, though, are reset to realistic expectations or low expectations by the way, Iron Fist went. That, maybe too, the negative feelings of Iron Fist made this one less impactful. Like after coming out of Iron Fist, people maybe they had, an already kind of biased opinion. Who knows? Maybe I do. I don't know. If it just it was more of a casual team up, not anything too outstanding or great. It was casual, average, likable to a degree. Like, comment, subscribe, check out my GoFundMe, check out my PayPal. I'm not monetized. If you want to support my channel, those are ways to do it. Uh, Stay awesome, rock on.